Good afternoon. Welcome to our office hour webinar. We'll get started in a few minutes. In the meantime, we have about 35 people who have joined so far, and we would love to see where you're joining from. So if you will click on that question box in your control panel and type in that question box where you're joining us from. We love to hear where people join from all across the country. So let's see where some of our other participants are joining from today. Oh, y'all are quick. We already have quite a few in the question box. So we have Virginia. Let's see, we have Franklin from Tampa. Welcome. We have Michelle from Maryland, Bob from Greenville, North Carolina, Ronald from Hawaii, Western Mass. Susan's from Muskogee, Oklahoma. I'm not too far from you, Susan. We have Puerto Rico. We have another Oklahoma, California, Indiana, New Hampshire, more Florida, more Virginia, more Tennessee, another Florida. Lots of Floridas today. Thanks for joining Florida. South Dakota, welcome Lori from South Dakota, Nicole from Iowa, Teresa from DC, more Florida, there's Chicago, Illinois is coming in again. We're so glad y'all joined us. If you're just jumping on the call, open up that control panel and just share with us where you're joining from today. We're glad you decided to make time to hang out with us today. It's going to be a fast and furious 30 minutes with lots of information and lots of new learning experiences. Oh, another Orlando, Florida, Iris from Orlando, Michelle from El Paso, Texas. Florida has really shown up today. Let's see, we have a few more people joining right now. Tim from Kansas, welcome. I'm just south of you. Having some of those lovely Oklahoma winds today. If you've ever been to Oklahoma on a windy day, you know what I'm talking about. The winds really come sweeping down the plains. Sherry from Florida, thanks for joining us. Sarah from Tennessee, thanks for joining us. So glad y'all are here. We'll give it another about 2 minutes and then we'll get started and we'll kick it off. If you're just jumping on, share with us where you're joining from. Dave from Florida, welcome, glad you joined us. The attendee list is growing quite quickly right now. Looks like we're gonna have quite a few people on, so thanks for taking time to join us today to learn a little bit more about ways we can increase classroom discussion. North Dakota is with us, welcome. Michigan, we have lots of states represented today. Eastern Oregon, welcome, Carrie. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in about a minute. Glad y'all jumped on. It's going to be a fun hour. Michelle from Western Pennsylvania, welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right, we'll give it about 30 more seconds and then we'll get started. It looks like we have about 70 people online currently. All right. I'm going to close that on my end and I'm going to say, welcome to 5 effective strategies to unlock the power of classroom discussion. Now, you know I like to get started right away. So look at this image. Can you identify with it? I'm going to pop up a quick poll and I'd like you to select your response. Number 1, and if you cannot identify with this image at all, and number 5, if you completely identify. Let's see where we're at. So what does online class or communication look like in elementary versus a high school setting? I'm getting quite a few people that say they completely identify. Mostly identify with it. So sometimes in high school or even the community college setting, You might have some type of discussion in your class and it's complete silence, right? So today we're going to talk about ways that we can unlock the power of classroom discussion in our own classes. So, like I said, we're going to experience 5, possibly 6 strategies to help increase classroom discussion. If we look at research from John Hattie, he's identified classroom discussion as having a 0.82 effect size, remembering that the average effect size of any educational influence on learning is 0.4. That means classroom discussion can have double effect on learning. It allows our students to improve communication, learn from each other, but it also allows us as instructors to see if our students have really learned those concepts. So let's jump right in. You're going to scan that QR code with your smartphone. It'll take you to what's called a Mentimeter. When you get there, you're going to finish this sentence. It says, this session will be a success if, and then you'll just finish the sentence in the box and then hit the blue submit button to submit your response. I'll give you just a moment to scan that QR code using the camera app on your smartphone. And I'm going to jump over there to see what some of the responses are that are coming in. We'll give it just a second. So when I load my Mentimeter, it's a free ed tech tool. Like I always say, check with your organization's IT department to make sure that you can use it on your network and with your students. Here are some ways that this session will be a success. If I pay attention, if I have excellent participation, if I get aha moments, I learn a strategy to implement today, I learn something new, I pick up a new strategy that works for me, absolutely. My computer doesn't hate me, I totally feel you. I can find ways to make my classes better for my students, absolutely. I leave with specific tools, techniques to implement right away, absolutely. The session will be a success if I learned new tricks for this old dog. All right, I gained some insight into how to reach my students. If I learned something new, if I learned something new to improve as an instructor. Hopefully, my goal is to make sure we get that. Everyone leaves with a tool that you can use tomorrow to help your students and to help you improve as an educator or instructor. Let's jump back to our slides. Now, what did we just do? We just use what's called a sentence stem. These are great ways to scaffold learning, right? Sentence stems help students understand what they should be analyzing in order to participate in a discussion. When preparing for a classroom discussion, you can have students compile their thoughts using sentence stems. So you just completed a sentence stem. Did you realize that? Probably so. And the prompt was provided for you, right? This session will be a success if. It helps you as a learner identify ways that this webinar or the lesson that we're learning can benefit you and can also be of value of your time. It also helps share those expectations. So as a facilitator, I now have a clear understanding of your expectations of this webinar or my lesson. But we know sentence stems can then be used to increase classroom discussion, like we just had an online discussion where I can share thoughts. You could read the thoughts on the screen. We could then talk about them in the chat or the question box. But what happens if we take it one step further? What happens if we engage what's called an elbow partner? So what's an elbow partner? It's simply someone near the student or the learner with whom they can partner. We know that when students interact with a partner or a small group, student engagement increases. So you can have learners complete a sentence stem individually, just like you just did. Then we could grab an elbow partner and have them share their sentence stem with each other to help guide the conversation. You can also then allow students to make changes to their sentence stems. You know, after consulting their elbow partner, new ideas might have emerged and they might want to redo their sentence stem. So do you realize now we're having students that are talking about concepts and content? I don't know about you, but sometimes as a teacher, I would ask a question and the whole class would just stare at me blankly. Or the other scenario, I would ask a question and they would talk about anything but the response to the question. So by using sentence stems, we can help students identify what they're analyzing or what they need to focus on. By adding an elbow partner, we then can guide that discussion in a small group that increases engagement. And we also know from John Dewey's research that learning occurs when you talk about content. So now we have students talking about content. What's next? Concentric circles. Have you heard about this? Sometimes they have different names and different variations. It could be anything from concentric circles to inside out circles to roundabout conversations. And each kind of has their own form. But basically, it's where you're going to divide your class into two groups. Group one may form an inner circle, and then group two is going to form an outer circle. And then students are going to pair up based on who they're facing in those circles because the circles face each other. Students can then ask questions and respond to one another. They can talk about certain topics or content that you want them to talk about. And then when you call time, they could rotate. So maybe they have 45 seconds to discuss a vocabulary or key term, and they could rotate partners. But you know me, and you know I like to take it one step further. So let's take concentric circles one step further. What about adding graphic organizers? The image on the screen is from a professional development session I facilitated at the HOSA ILC conference last June. You'll notice that the participants are sort of in a circle facing each other, but you might notice some of them have a piece of paper in their hands. So what is that? That's actually a graphic organizer that we had created, and they're using that as a prompt with their own notes to guide the conversation with their partner. So each pair was able to discuss the prompt for a defined amount of time, 45 seconds, 1 minute, and then rotate to the next partner to create a new pair. So the conversation is always evolving. They're learning with and from each other. The graphic organizer really helps our learners stay on task, and it provides another scaffold for learning. You can use graphic organizers like Venn diagrams, KWL charts, or even the fishbones for strategies. So you might be catching on to a theme by now, right? We're starting to pair instructional strategies together to deepen classroom discussion and provide scaffolds for our learners so that our learners are successful in these discussion activities. Now, most of the ones we've done so far have been focused on in-person, but what might it look like if we take these classroom discussion ideas to a virtual level? Let's try something new. So you're going to scan this QR code. We're going to experience affinity mapping. When you scan the QR code, it's going to take you to a Google Jamboard. You're going to click on the sticky note, which I have a visual on the next slide. When you click on the sticky note, you're going to type your favorite season. So is your favorite season fall, winter, spring, or summer? You decide, type it on the sticky note, and then place the sticky note anywhere on that board. So I'll give you just a moment to scan that QR code, log in, get it into that Jamboard. You don't have to log in, just access the Jamboard. It is a Google product. If you're using your smartphone, the sticky note is going to be located in the bottom right with the plus sign for the tools. So it's located in the tools. It looks just like a sticky note. Let's see what our next one looks like. So there's the QR code for the same Jamboard. So first you can access the sticky note, type on the sticky note. You can change the color if you wish, hit save, and then hit cancel. Place your sticky note anywhere on the Jamboard. It doesn't matter. Just type the name of your favorite season. What's your favorite season? Let's find out. So as I'm accessing the Jamboard, I already have one open. So you have the sticky note here. If you're on your mobile device, it's going to be the bottom right-hand corner plus notes, and it looks like a little sticky note icon. So make sure you click on the sticky note icon, because if you click on the pin, it'll write on the screen, because it is a collaborative whiteboard tool. So just like anything else, make sure you check with IT department to make sure you can use the Google product called Jamboard. It's open to your students. So I see some sticky notes coming in. So you can do this activity in person or virtually with your students. Here's what's going to happen. So I noticed there's a couple of falls. I noticed there's a couple of winters. There's some summers over here. Here's some spring. Here's another summer. Oh, here's a fall. Here's a summer. Here's a spring, summer. Do you see what's happening here? As I sort the sticky notes, you'll notice that as I sort the sticky notes, they move into the four corners of the room. So sorting the sticky notes is what's called the affinity process or affinity mapping. So affinity mapping lets us move sticky notes into like areas or like themes. So for this activity, it was really simple to move the sticky notes. I know if you're writing, I'm sorry, the writing's not going to quite work on this activity. We'll get it fixed. I can move the sticky notes into themes. So I can put all the summers together. I can put all the falls together. I can put all the springs together, and I can put all the winters together. So we can kind of see some themes emerge. You could use this with any topic or any concept. It's called affinity mapping. So as you can see, I have sorted by season. I use this graphic organizer that has 4 squares because we're going to take the affinity mapping process that we just did, where you shared your favorite season and we sorted by season. And now we have 4 groups. So I could put you in a virtual breakout room based on your response. So there could be a winter breakout room, a spring breakout room, a summer breakout room, or a fall breakout room, so that you could talk about your favorite season. So affinity mapping lets us take it to the level where we can organize our ideas into those themes so that we can summarize or even find points of agreement. So we found that there are 5 or 6 people who would agree that winter is their favorite season. This also ensures that every student's voice is part of that decision-making process and the learning process. When we pair affinity mapping with a 4 corners activity, you can see that now I have divided you into groups. I could virtually send you to breakout rooms. And then in those groups, you could discuss why you chose that season. Why is summer your favorite season? You could discuss why is fall your favorite season? And you could even discuss why winter is your favorite season. So it's a way that then we can take the affinity mapping that where we're summarizing themes, finding points of agreement, and then we're breaking into smaller groups that have like ideas to increase that conversation. It encourages conversation in small groups, but it still is going to activate those higher level thinking skills, because students in those 4 smaller groups, as you can see on the screen, are having to defend why that was their favorite season or why that is their point of view. So for time's sake, we're not going to take it to that next level today, but you could use breakout rooms, like I said, digitally. You can also set it up so every corner of your classroom is a different season or point. So I could send winter to one corner, spring to one corner, summer to another, and fall to another to have them have conversations in person. So these activities can work face-to-face or in that virtual online setting as well, where we're still providing small groups to discuss the reasoning behind their selection so that they're talking about content and they're constantly learning from each other using higher level thinking skills to defend their points of view. All right, let's keep going on this. All right, so we're going to start to kind of summarize all that we've done so far. So we covered kind of 6 strategies, mainly 5, very quickly in about 15 minutes, 16 minutes. I now want to know from those activities, what stuck out to you the most? So once again, grab your smartphone and scan that QR code. Now, when you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a Mentimeter. When you get to the Mentimeter, it's the same as before. You can submit, fill in the box, hit submit, and it will populate onto the screen. You can also go to menti.com at the top and then enter the code 15 53 63 36 54, and I'll also put the link in the chat for you. So if you want to click on the link in the chat, that is there. When we get here, let's see some of our answers. What's stuck with us so far today? So a sticky note idea. Using Mentimeter is easier than Poll Everywhere. I might have to agree with you a little bit. And it has many more response types for the free version. I like free ed tech tools. So pairing instructional strategies. So that is a point of significance because we can take instructional strategies and pair them together to deepen conversation and to increase the rigor of our class, moving it to higher level, higher order thinking skills. Absolutely. Sentence stems. I feel like sentence stems are things that we learn sometimes in college, sometimes in an alternative certification program. We learn about them, but sometimes it's hard to translate that into our class. So hopefully today you got a short snippet about how sentence stems can work to unlock the power of classroom discussion in your classroom. There are new technologies out there waiting to be discovered, yes. Concentric circles, yes. What stuck out to me the most was the affinity mapping, right? So just everyone can just brain dump onto a board for affinity mapping. You as a facilitator, even students can sort into themes. Absolutely. Jamboard. Yep, Jamboard's Google product. Sentence stems, having students interact. Guiding students to talk and demonstrate critical thinking. Yes, that was one of the biggest ahas for me as an educator. I think going into teaching, I thought I would ask a question and my students would all just like participate and like talk about content and give me the answers I wanted to hear. And I learned quickly that that's not the case. So hopefully today you got some strategies to really help you increase classroom discussion. We know from John Hattie's research, the effect size is 0.82 versus 0.4 of an average influence. So it's double that of the average effect size. And we know when the teacher stops talking and students start talking and having those discussions, learning can double. So that's what I always think about in my head. Affinity paired with 4 corners and then breakout rooms. Yes, yeah, great for virtual. Sticky notes, sentence stems. 4 corners allows you to sort out parts of a survey, absolutely, and use it for a breakout room, check for understanding, adding to a concentric circle, yeah. The like sentence stems, lots of variety, absolutely. Sticky notes, allow discussions to expand and gather for more information from students, absolutely. How can we take our discussion to that next level? We know we want students talking about content. How can we really get them using their knowledge, their expertise, and combine with content? That I can't use some of these strategies with my college students as well as my high school students. Yeah, so some strategies work better for different groups of students, different age groups. I also probably wouldn't do all these at one time. If we're doing the affinity mapping with the 4 corners, I probably would recommend starting with an affinity map process that was super easy, something like we did with the 4 seasons, just to have students have the opportunity to, how do I share, how do I brainstorm and share my ideas? Do I use Post-it notes? Do we have it on a paper? Do we use something digital? And then sorting those into themes. So that might be one day. And then the next time I would say like, here's a 4-corner activity. Now let's combine the 2, right? Because we want to make sure that the strategies are low cognitive load because we want students processing content, not strategies, which sometimes I don't model well here, being perfectly honest, because we are short on time. And with the short on time, I'm going to take it back to our main slide. So thanks for your feedback on that point of most significance. So let's review briefly what we did. We started with those sentence stems, and then we added an elbow partner. So now we're using our sentence stems to guide our conversation with an elbow partner, because we know when students share one-on-one or in small groups, they're more likely to converse and increases engagement. And then we took concentric circles, and we also used graphic organizers to guide those conversations in concentric circles or inside-out circles or roundabout conversations, whatever you want to call them. Then we did the affinity mapping, where we could like summarize and synthesize and look for themes and information. And we took it into 4 corners once we broke out those themes into 4 areas. We know that then students in those 4 corners have pretty similar ideas. It helps them really solidify why they chose that area, reasoning behind it, as well as making claims for it going forward. We use the tool Mentimeter and then the Jamboard, which is by Google today. As always, make sure that you can use those with your students on your school network, etc., before you jump in and use them. The research and all the resources today, the K20 Learn is a website. They have like 200 free instructional strategies. So if you're like me, I use the same 3 instructional strategies my whole teaching career. This one has 197 additional ones you can add to your teaching toolbox. Hopefully you got a few of those today as well. We always look at John Hattie's Making Thinking Visible, his educational influences for over 250 influences. And then we pulled some from John Dewey's original research on education as well. With that, thank you so much for spending your 25 minutes with us so far. I always try to leave 5 minutes at the very end for Q&A. So if you have a question, this is a great time to pop it into that question box so that I can share the answer and the responses to your questions, because I'm sure if you have it, several others have it as well. Then you do have a certificate of attendance that is attached in the handout section of the control panel that you can print off. And you will be receiving a recording of this webinar as well as the certificate in a follow-up email that's usually sent to you in about 24 hours after this event. Make sure to check your spam folders. Sometimes it does go to spam. And then the recording of this will be posted on our GWPD page in about 3 to 4 days. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box. And if you got to run, we'll see you next session, which is on April 18th at 2 p.m. Central. So I have a few questions coming in. Will this PowerPoint be shared via email? It is not, but Teresa, if you'll send me an email, I'm happy to send it to you. Thank you all for the kind comments in the question box. Thank you for attending. Another question came in, can I use this technique with ESL students? Bridget, I'm not sure exactly which technique you're using, but I will say the sentence stems, everything that we had that deals with scaffolding are great in the ESL classroom. 4 corners is great in the ESL classroom. Affinity mapping is great. So they all work really well. If you want to send me a personal email with some more questions, I am happy to answer them for you. I know we crammed a lot in 30 minutes, so I hope you have a super afternoon, and we'll be seeing you in 2 weeks at our next session. So have a great day.